You know that feeling, right? The harder you try to be the helpful, agreeable person on the team, the more you seem to get, well, overlooked. It's this bizarre paradox we see all the time. Today, we're going to break down this hidden power dynamic piece by piece. We're going to look at the real architecture of prestige and expose how the very things we're taught will make us successful are often the exact things holding us back. So, let's just start with a really provocative, maybe even uncomfortable truth. Your constant agreeability, your readiness to drop everything to help out, that deep need to be liked, it might just be the anchor weighing you down. I mean, think about it. In this sort of unspoken power game that happens in every office, needing approval doesn't come across as kindness. It's seen by the system as a lack of your own conviction. It's a signal that you're, well, follower grade, built to support, not to lead.
And this is what we call the likability trap. It's this invisible system where all your efforts to be approachable and helpful kind of backfire. This trap hits what you can think of as a neural mute button in your colleagues' minds. Now, it's not a real button, of course. It's a mental shortcut. Because you're always so agreeable, your opinion becomes predictable, and the human brain, which is all about saving energy, just learns to tune out predictable stuff. So while you're busy being liked by everyone, their brains are quietly demoting you, filtering you out of the conversations that actually matter.
So in this explainer, here's our game plan. We're going to dissect this whole system across these 5 stages. First, we'll look at that neural mute button. Then, we'll map out the anatomy of devaluation to see how it works. After that, we'll dig into the biology of influence to get to the deep psychological roots. Then we'll get practical with a counter strategy called strategic friction. And finally, we'll wrap up with the mandate of value to help you escape the trap for good. All right, let's dive in.
Okay, so let's get right into the diagnosis and tackle the big paradox here. How does being more approachable, more helpful, and more likable somehow lead to you becoming professionally invisible? I mean, it feels totally backwards, doesn't it? We're taught these are good things. But the workplace has its own weird logic, and the way it pushes nice people to the sidelines is brutally efficient because it taps into our subconscious ideas about who's in charge.
And here is the great irony of it all. We're pushed to think that keeping the peace is the most important thing. But when you're just focused on getting everyone's approval, you avoid the kind of friction that actually signals leadership. You start to lose your spot in what we can call the neural ranking. That's like this subconscious leaderboard in everyone's head that sorts people by authority. Your great ideas get processed and shrunk down into background noise. This ranking is what decides whose voice gets amplified when it really counts and whose just gets tuned out.
This whole spiral leads to a state of what we're calling prestige bankruptcy. And we all know this person, right? The super helper. They're brilliant, they're always there for you, and everybody loves them. And yet, they never get the promotion. Why? Because their competence has been totally devalued. It's not a premium asset anymore. It's just a given. Their help is an expectation, not a bonus. And this is the key. You're not being respected, you're being utilized. You've basically become a reliable tool, and you don't promote a tool.
Okay, now let's get into the anatomy of how this devaluation actually happens. We're calling it the cycle of irrelevance for a good reason. This isn't just bad luck, it's a system. And we can actually map it out with some real precision because it's a feedback loop that plays out over and over again in every meeting, every project, every single email. Let's break down how it works.
So over on the left, you've got the service node. When you try way too hard to be liked, this is the role you accidentally sign up for. Your job becomes to agree, to support, to make things easy. Your approval costs nothing. Now look at the right, the strategic node. This person is seen as a high-value asset. They've got a clear path up. Why? Because their time is respected, their expertise has weight, and they're seen as an authority, all because their value is not given away for free. You have to earn their agreement.
This slide right here, this is the engine of the whole trap. It shows the 4 stages that turn you into the architect of your own irrelevance. Step 1, the compliance baseline. You just set the bar really high for being agreeable. You laugh at all the jokes, you agree with every opinion. Then comes step 2, the boundary test. People will naturally, sometimes without even realizing it, start to test your limits. That's the hey, can you just take a quick look at this email at 4:59 p.m. on a Friday? And when you say yes to keep the peace, you hit stage 3, attentional gating. The brain loves shortcuts, so it learns to ignore you because you're predictable. You become ignorable. And that leads to the really tragic final stage, devaluation. You sense you're being ignored, so what do? You try even harder to be helpful. But that extra effort doesn't look like value, it looks like desperation, which just reinforces the whole loop and tanks your prestige even more.
And this quote just says it all. That boundary test phase we just talked about, that's where the whole game is won or lost. The second you respond to a crazy request with a compliant smile, that is the exact moment you're trading your own agency for a quick little hit of social approval. And in their subconscious, the little status calculating part of their brain just confirmed its theory. You are a low prestige, high compliance person. Your boundaries have been mapped and it's just an open field.
So why is this system so darn effective? Why do our brains just automatically fall into this pattern? To get the answer, we kind of have to toss out the modern business books and look at something way, way older, our deep, ancient evolutionary wiring. This has nothing to do with team-building workshops. This is all about primal instincts for status and survival. You see, our brains are hardwired to respect something called costly signaling. The classic example is a peacock's tail. It takes a ton of energy to grow, and it basically makes the bird a walking target for predators. But it sends a really clear signal to potential mates. My genes are so good that I can survive despite this ridiculous handicap. Well, the same thing happens in the office. When you risk a little bit of social awkwardness, by saying no, by pushing back on a bad idea, you're sending a powerful, costly signal. You're saying, my own value is so high, I don't need this group's constant approval to get by.
And this slide just lays out the difference perfectly. On the left, appeasement is a scarcity signal. It's basically pleading for acceptance, and it screams, I need the group to protect me, and I'll give up my own power to get it. But now look at the right. That's an abundance signal. It shows you have so much value on your own that you're not afraid of a little disagreement. And this totally changes the value of your yes. In the scarcity model, your yes is cheap. But in the abundance model, your yes becomes this rare, high-value thing that people actually have to work for.
This whole thing is powered by a basic mental shortcut we all have. The scarcity heuristic. We just automatically think things that are rare are more valuable, and things that are everywhere are less valuable. It works for diamonds, for limited edition sneakers, and yeah, it works for your time and your agreement. If your yes is always free and available, their brains literally process it as worthless. Why would they value something that costs them nothing? All right, so we've spent the whole first half digging into the diagnosis, mapping out the trap and its deep psychological roots. Now we're going to pivot. Let's talk about how to reclaim your agency. The good news is, this is a system, and any system can be navigated once you know the rules. The diagnosis is over. It's time to talk counter-strategy.
And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do I do all this without everyone thinking I'm a complete jerk? And that's a fair question, but the goal here isn't to become difficult just for the sake of it. That's just trading one problem for another. The goal is to shift from a mindset of appeasement to a new, powerful framework of strategic value exchange. It's about changing your goal. Aim to be respected first, and let being liked be a nice side effect of that respect, not the price you pay to get it. So this new framework is called value-based reciprocity. It's a complete mindset shift. You stop treating your time and expertise like free samples you hand out to get people to like you. Instead, you treat them like valuable assets that you invest strategically. And you start by introducing these small, intentional moments of what we call strategic friction. This isn't about being a pain. It's about creating a pause. So instead of an instant yes, you might say, let me just check my priorities and I'll get back to you. That little delay, that's strategic friction. It's a subtle signal that your resources aren't infinite. Here's a super simple but incredibly powerful tactic, a language shift that changes who holds the status debt. When you say, I'm sorry for the delay, you are taking the blame, accepting the debt. The new way transfers that debt. By saying thank you for your patience, you reframe the entire interaction. Suddenly, you're not the one who's failing, they're the one receiving your grace. That tiny little switch from sorry to thank you instantly recalibrates the power dynamic. Okay, here are 4 practical things you can start doing today. First, the strategic friction reset. Stop apologizing for things that aren't your fault. Don't say sorry for asking a question or having an opinion. Second, selective availability. Look, high-status people aren't available 24/7. Put a little delay in your response times. Block off focus time on your calendar. Make your expertise a little scarcer, and it will become more valuable. Third, the respect over applause audit. Before you say yes to anything, just ask yourself, am I doing this to actually be useful, or am I just looking for a pat on the back? And finally, learn to be the necessary dissenter. The most valuable person in the room is often the one who's brave enough to say, hey, I think we're missing something here, even when it's uncomfortable. And finally, we get to the core mandate. You know, the tactics we just talked about are great tools, but they're pretty useless if you don't change your internal operating system. This last part is all about installing that new mindset, the philosophy you need to not just dodge the trap, but to actively build real, lasting prestige. And let's be really clear here, this is not about being selfish. Actually, real ethical leadership demands this mindset.
You've got two paths. One leads to the easy smile and the temporary comfort of everyone agreeing. The other, harder path leads to the actual goal. Your job as a leader, whether you have the title or not, is to anchor the team to its best intentions, not just reflect its current mood. It means you have to value the long-term win over the short-term comfort of being popular.
We spend so much of our careers trying to earn respect, but just doing more, giving more, saying yes to everything. We think prestige is something other people give us as a reward. But that's not how it works. Prestige isn't given to you. It's something you protect. It is a direct result of the standards you set for yourself and the boundaries you enforce. It's the friction, not the favor, that truly signals your value.
And this right here is the ultimate takeaway. This is the mental weapon you should take with you into every single meeting. Prestige isn't something you get by asking nicely. It's not about hoping someone will finally see your value. It's a strategic command for anyone who is serious about having real influence. Stop asking for permission to be valued. Start being too valuable to ignore.